MTG Scoundrels, it's in the cardboard.
Ladies and gentlemen, scoundrels of all ages. This week on the docket, we have Izzet Murktide versus Eldrazi Agro on Modern Weekly. Looks like we're starting going to 18 and casting a ragavan, passing the turn. Forest for the Eldrazi Agro player and passing. Scalding Tarn into a Mishra's Bauble and attacking for 2. Looks like exiling a Thought-Knot Seer there off the ragavan, making a treasure. Putting us to 18 all. Urza's Saga, and a pass. So I pop in the Mishra's Bauble there, look in the top of their library, and crack in the Scalding Tarn. Finding the Surveil land. These Surveil lands have really found their way into the modern format. Mostly as a 1-of or 2-of. But if you weren't going to be trying to take damage anyway, it is a much better piece to fetch up. Attacking again with the ragavan. Looks like finding an endless one off the top. And looks like gonna go ahead and cast the endless one here. Put us at 17 to 16. There's an Eldrazi Temple. Passing the turn. Urza's Saga on 2 there. An attack for 4. 4 blocks, making a construct. Oh, and there is a lightning bolt to kill the construct. Ragavan here revealing the Reality Smasher. Looks like that'll stay exiled. And there's the Preordain. Scrying 2, drawing a card. Preordain being a somewhat recent unban in the format. This really helped this Murktide list be even more efficient. Looks like the Eldrazi Agro player here, floating the mana off the Urza Saga. And searching. Probably for a Relic of Progenitus. Yep, there's the Relic of Progenitus. In this case, just trying to keep the Murktide player off Delirium as well as keeping that spell count down. So that way Murktide just doesn't end up that big. There's an Urza's Tower. And a Thought-Knot Seer. Interesting spot. Well, that's a hand. 2 counterspells, 2 Unholy Heats, and 1 Lightning Bolt. Not a lot of great options here to exile for the Eldrazi player. Do you just take the counters out of hand? Or do you take the burn spells out of hand here? Unholy Heat, of course, versatile, that it hits creatures and planeswalkers. I think, yep, well, still discussing it. But I think probably taking the Lightning Bolt here. Yeah, looks like taking the Lightning Bolt. Cracking the Relic. And looks like we're going to get a double Unholy Heat to kill the Thought-Knot Seer. So we know there's at least 2 counterspells still in hand. Of course, the Murktide player was able to do that because of the 2 treasures off of the Ragavan from previous turns. And looks like that is a Dismember that was exiled there off the Ragavan, getting hit for 4 again, sending us to 17-8. There is a Waste. Staring down a 2-turn clock here. Yeah, difficult spot. Unsure exactly what the play will be. Oh, looks like Walking Ballista on 1. Might end up being too little too late, but we will see. Alright, it resolves through the known counterspell in hand. There's another Relic, which resolves as well. Well, or does it? There's 2 counterspells sitting there. Oh, looks like that's going to be a Brazen Borrower, and the Ballista's going to shoot the Ragavan. Exiling a card from a graveyard here. By the way, we do recognize, unfortunately, the Walking Ballista went to hand instead of the graveyard. Luckily, there was another Walking Ballista in hand, but just as a reminder, make sure you put things where they're supposed to go after you activate them. There's a walking ballista. Looks like trying to do a walking ballista for 2. And it'll get counterspelled here. There is a dismember. Taking 4. And passing the turn. There is a ledger shredder. Urza's Saga. Looks like this is a pretty tough spot for the Eldrazi player. Dead to an attack and a lightning bolt at least. Yeah. Got to figure out what you're going to do in this spot. And yep, there is a reality smasher. Gotta cast something. There's a fetch going to 16. And there is the counterspell. So I'm going to go ahead and exile a card from the graveyard in response to the fetch, trying to keep the Murktide player off Delirium. And a pass of the turn. There's a dashed ragavan. And scooping it up from there. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. Please let us know in the comments what decks you'd like to see in the future. Moving on to game 2 here. It's likely both players, well, really only one of the players will be sideboarding if we're being honest. Eldrazi Agro tends to be a Karn sideboard. The Izzet Murktide player probably bringing in some stuff to fight against Tron. Don't want him hitting the big mana. And also, probably bringing in something to deal with artifacts as well. Just as a reminder, in the description below, you'll find timestamps as well as deck descriptions, specifically links to decks that are being played in the video. We've been adding this as a feature for future matches as well as the past few of them. So definitely check those out. Of course, Jacob here on Izzet Murktide, one of many different decks Jacob's known for playing. Occasionally breaks out Mill as well as Rakdos Scam. And of course we have Jason here, who generally was a very big Eldrazi player and has been known to occasionally break out Lana's food combo as well, and sometimes Esper. It's like back into game 2 here. Turn 1, Endless One for 2 off the Eldrazi Temple. Land and pass. Attacking for 2. Playing a land and attempting to cast a Chalice on 1. But there is the Annul. Straight out of Kaldheim. And there is the DRC Dragon Rage Channeler. Urza's Saga. Into a Walking Ballista. Shooting the DRC. Going to the graveyard where it belongs. And attacking for 2. And there is an Eldrazi Mimic in the second main phase. A card that isn't seen that much anymore. But with Modern Horizons 3 coming around, could see an uptick in play. And cracking the Scalding Tarn here for the Surveil land. Mountain here into another Dragon's Rage Channeler. Easy for me to say. Passing the turn. Urza's Saga gonna tick up. Attacking in. It's going to take 4. Bringing us to 11 to 20. Passing the turn. There's an island for the Murktide player. Well, and there's a Magus of the Moon. That's what you want to see when you're up against Tron. In response, on the stack, the Eldrazi player will make a construct, and because of the, well, there you go. Because of the Urza's Saga losing all its counters thanks to the Magus of the Moon, it gets sacked. If it doesn't have any abilities. The Dismember got countered by the Spell Pierce. And looks like we have a Walking Ballista on 2. Still a sizable board here for the Eldrazi Agro player. Attacking for 3. And yep, that Eldrazi Mimic is a 2/2. Thanks to the colorless creature entering. Looks like taking 6. Dangerous position here. Starting with a preordain. Probably trying to find a blue source would be my guess. Occasionally Murktide players do get stuck under their own Blood Moon effects. And the pass of the turn. There's a certain point with Tron decks where having all of the large amounts of mana matters less than keeping the other player off of the mana they need. So here we go, attacking with everything. And looks like the DRC blocking the Walking Ballista, the Magus of the Moon blocking the Eldrazi Mimic, which should just, should just put the Murktide player dead unless there's a response. Because activate the Walking Ballista twice, shoot the Murktide player for 2, and get hit for 3 by the Construct and the Endless one. And there we go, moving on to game 2. All tied up here. Excuse me, moving on to game 3. Right. In game 3 here, Murktide's going to be on the play. That's probably a good spot for the Murktide deck to be in. The real question is, how much do you unsideboard? How much do you leave in? That's one thing about the Eldrazi deck. A lot less decisions to be made game to game in terms of removing stuff, putting stuff back in. Both players on 6 here. Misty Rainforest, fetching. For the Steam Vents. Going to 17. Into a Ragavan. Well, tale old as time. Urza's Mine, Expedition Map, passing the turn. Ragavan beats in, attacks for 2. Exiles an Endless one off the top. And looks like won't be casting it, but will be casting a Preordain to find their land for turn and passing. is an Urza's Power Plant, 2/3 of the way there. Early enough in this game, it could be a situation here where just go get what you need. Yeah, especially if you don't have any other play. Finding the tower, putting it in hand. And looks like we might get the achievement unlocked here for both players shuffling at the same time or searching at the same time. Murktide player here finding the Surveil land once again. Okay. Surveilling looks like keeping it on top, untapping, drawing, playing the third land, that being a Spire Bluff Canal. Attacking with the Ragavan, sending us to 16 all, and exiling an expedition map. Looks like there's 2 treasures there for the Murktide player, and passing the turn. Well, sometimes you just get Tron on turn 3. 7 mana available. Now the question is what to do with it. Well, there's an Eldrazi Mimic. And there's an endless one for 5. On the stack here. And there's the lightning bolt in response to the cast of the endless one to take out the Eldrazi Mimic. And a pass of the turn. And there is another Brazen Borrower, sending the endless one back to hand. Casting its petty theft side, of course. Into a Mishra's Bauble, cracking the bauble. Looking at the top card. And attacking for 2, exiling a Walking Ballista. Getting a treasure, looks like going ahead and casting the Walking Ballista for 1 here. There's an Urza's Mine. Nine mana available. Facing down a Ragavan and a 1/1 Walking Ballista. With the Brazen Borrower on an adventure. Looks like 5 mana, casting the endless one. That got through, so why not cast the Karn the Great Creator? Karn ticking down. Interesting spot here. What do you find off the Karn ultimately? The answer might just be the One Ring. You really have to try to outpace the Izzet Murktide player. And with the amount of counter spells and just card draw in general, off of in card selection, off of things like Expressive Iteration and Preordain, really puts it in a weird spot where they just eventually have more cards than you. But the One Ring helps mitigate that. Yep, there is the One Ring, going to hand, and passing the turn. And speaking of, there's the Expressive Iteration. Looking at the top three, one goes to bottom, one goes to exile, and one goes to hand. And there's an Unholy Heat to take care of the Karn. So that way those treasures are freed up, as well as the Walking Ballista. Man, if there was a time to slam a Murktide, it might be now. Well, instead decides to attack for 3, but instead only gets in for 1. Bolting the Endless One after it blocks the Ragavan, leaving 2 treasures available. And there is the Murktide. Murktide Regent. For some odd reason, they decided to print Delve on that creature. And since its printing has been a staple of the format. Looks like another Urza's Mine. 11 mana available. Staring down a big old Murktide. It's a weird spot, but sometimes you just gotta cast an Ugin the Spirit Dragon to kill a Murktide. There you are. Exiles the Murktide. And then casts the Expedition map and cracks it with the 3 mana from the Urza's Tower. Finding a Waste, just in case a Magus of the Moon comes back out. Or a Blood Moon, for that matter. Alright. Looks like passing the turn after attacking for 1. A bunch of mana. Oh, there's an Eldrazi Temple. That's 13 mana. Well, sometimes you just Yep, there's an Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. And in response to the trigger, looks like Tishana's Tidebinder is going to get flashed in. But that still is a 10-10. Of course, Tishana's Tidebinder being one of the best cards printed in the last year or so. There is a Ledger Shredder. And a pass of the turn. Playing the Wastes out here. And playing the One Ring. Attacking for 10. Them going over again the Tishana's text here. Granted, that still is a 10-10 coming in. Does deal with one of the creatures, and the One Ring gives the fog for the turn. There is an expressive iteration. Looking at the top three again. One to hand, an Island Exile, and one to the bottom of the library. Plays the island for turn. And casts a Murktide. This one not as big as the previous one. And of course conniving as well from the Ledger Shredder. Drawing a card off the One Ring, taking one off the One Ring, and drawing two off the One Ring. Forest for turn. On this cereal box version of Ulamog, most of the text is on the back. Funny enough. Sometimes you're just staring down a board and realize, well, you got an Ulamog. Better attack with it. In this case, blocking with the Tidebinder. There's an Eldrazi Mimic. Now it's a matter of what is the follow-up play? Well, there is a Haywire Mite. And passing the turn. Conniving off of that Ledger Shredder. Putting the land into the bin. Well, attacking. There's a Dismember. Going after the Murktide. putting us at 16 to 8 and taking a couple off the ledger shredder here. Yep, there we go, 16 to 6. Well, it should be 16 to 4, excuse me. Drawing 3 cards off of the One Ring. Playing another Tron land, this time a power plant. There is a Reality Smasher, making the Mimic a 5/5. Looks like Tidebinder is going to try to hit the Mimic here from that ETB. Does so, but there is a Basilisk Collar. Sometimes this deck will play Basilisk Collar to be able to make Walking Ballista a removal stick. And sometimes you just attach a Basilisk Collar to an Ulamog. And there you go. Match 3 going to the Eldrazi player. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you again for watching. We will be back next week with more Paper Magic here playing the modern format. We appreciate all of you that have shown love to our channel. And we will catch all of you guys next week.